Welcome everyone to Snail School. We're gonna fucking learn something. I'm your host, something funny. All right, tonight we have a very interesting topic to talk about. When you guys think of cults, what do you think about? You think about like Charles Manson. You think about maybe Jamestown, maybe Heaven's Gate, things like that. Do you think Rehab? Because if you don't, well, I do. So there we go. Tonight we're going to be talking about Teen Challenge. Teen Challenge is a rehabilitation organization which deals with, at first originally dealing with alcohol and drug-related issues, and now serving all life crippling issues, but what they do is they do it through faith-based teachings and programs and such. So it's primarily a faith-based program rehabilitation thing. Now, I want to say from the beginning that this by no means is a bad thing for everyone. I know this is kind of crazy that some people think it's a cult, and here I am to say that it's not all bad, because the way that Teen Challenge works is it's all these isolated places for the most part. There is Global Teen Challenge, which sees over all of it, but it's almost like franchise based, where you have these places that operate individually and independently. That's not completely independent, but it is, it's very loosely overseed. There isn't a lot of overseeing, on the top, and through like Global Teen Challenge and Teen Challenge USA and such. So let's talk about this. I know that, with all that out of the way, I want to say if you've had a good experience with Teen Challenge, cool, great, awesome for you. If you are if your person aligns with these people and then their ideas and their program, it can be a great thing for you. But for a lot of people, there's a lot of accusations and allegations with Teen Challenge. I'll give you a quick summary. It's as I said, it's a rehabilitation program which deals with anything from alcohol, drugs, violence, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, depression. It really goes across the whole gambit. So, and this is, they primarily work through faith-based, as I said, issues, and they really push that first and foremost, that like it's rehabilitation through faith. And let's watch them talk about it right here.
Teen Challenge. It's a ministry that's helped so many people struggling with addiction. It was started by your dad, Don Wilkerson, your uncle, David Wilkerson. Tell me a little bit about what the work that it does.
Well, Teen Challenge, basically, it's for anybody with a life-controlling problem, but especially for addiction. But it reaches those lost in addiction, but it offers the hope of Jesus Christ, and that's the difference between any other secular, rehabilitation program, and that the answer is Jesus Christ.
I was reading about this. So you wrote about this in this book, Giving Hope an Address, and
I should also mention, this is her name is Julie Close. She is, as they've said, her uncle started the whole program, and eventually handed it down to his brother, and that's who her father and uncle are.
I was reading about this. So you wrote about this in this book, Giving Hope an Address, and it tells a little bit of the story. It's an amazing story. And I was thinking, for a lot of people reading that, when you just say Jesus is the answer, sometimes I think even as people of faith, we think, okay, yes, but,
right.
And obviously people dealing with addictions have to go through detox, they have to go through counseling, like there's many things.
Right.
What do you mean? Is it oversimplifying to say that Jesus is the answer? Or what do you mean? Because you've watched this happen for decades.
I don't think so. My uncle, when years ago when he started the ministry, he used to say that the answer is the Jesus factor, and that was kind of simplistic, you know. But really, what Teen Challenge does is gets to the spiritual problem of addiction, and everyone there's a spiritual problem of addiction, and it really cuts to what, you know, and it meets those deep issues, the deep soul and heartful issues of your family, of your upbringing, and that's what Teen Challenge does, and in a sense of just bringing the gospel to light and really making it.
So there you go. There is Teen Challenge in somewhat of a nutshell. I wanted to give it a fair go. This was from someone who is a major part of Teen Challenge. Northwestern University study of the largest Teen Challenge found 86% drug-free after 3 years. Now, that's great and all. You know, you might be looking at these numbers and go, wow, anyone who goes through this program really has a great success rate, 86%. This unfortunately does not mention the high dropout rate that they have. I mean, all these types of programs do have a high dropout rate to begin with. So, when you're basically, what I'm trying to suggest is that this information is at least tailored in a way to make Teen Challenge, which they're now called Adult and Teen Challenge, but for this whole video, we're going to call them just Teen Challenge. They speak about this in a way that makes the claims sound better than they really are. This is the study that they had just talked about, which was, let me see. This is the Northwestern University study, and this is just one page of it. I don't want to go through the entire thing and really bore you guys with it, but what I am trying to show is this is just kind of one of the thank you parts of the people who were running this study. It is all it says is to Carla, Joshua, and Emily, and to the one who binds us together. That is a reference to God and Jesus and such. There is some sort of possible bias with this. This is not a completely unbiased study. You do have a person who is seemingly religious to some degree, talking about a religious program. One that as far as rehabilitation goes, that's one of the major points of this program. Is like I said, it's a faith-based rehabilitation program. This is a piece of an interview talking about the Teen Challenge dropout rate, which is including the court-mandated students. So they're going to tout, oh, look, our dropout rate is so low. And it's like, well, a lot of the people going through this are court-mandated, meaning if you get picked up for a drug, you get caught holding drugs or being under the influence of drugs and such like that, or dealing with some sort of alcohol problem, a court may find you guilty of the crime that you've been accused of, and you will have to go to mandatory rehabilitation. Teen Challenge is one of those mandatory rehabilitation centers. The issue where you might see something, where you might see an issue, is that Teen Challenge is like I said, a faith-based program. If you are mandated to go to a faith-based program, and there have been many claims that people have made that they tried to get out of Teen Challenge, they tried to be, they've asked their lawyers to request them to go to a different rehabilitation center, but the judge declined and such. If you're forced to go through a faith-based program like this, that is a questionable part between the separation of church and state, when the state is requiring you to essentially go through a religious program. You know what I mean? So here is, I will tell you his name in 1 second.
Statistical dropout rate for any...
Reverend Joel Jacob Bukowski. He's the director of the Community Outreach and Teen Challenge. He's going to talk about, like I said, their statistics and their dropout rates.
A statistical dropout rate for any long-term center, 6 months or beyond, is anywhere from 50 to 60, sometimes 70% dropout, usually within the first couple months of a long program. We have finally got to a place. I just did this study, actually, about 2 weeks ago, proudly to show our CEO, because we made a lot of changes. And we are now up to a 42% dropout rate for our long-term program.
That's
I don't
not
know
bad.
anybody can say that. That's a remarkable statistic when you understand how people drop off.
Again, I really question this because, you know, you are, one, you doing the study, you are like not an independent analyst, you know, analyst. You know what I'm saying? You can't review this information, like I said, without bias. You know, you are a director, essentially a leader figure in Teen Challenge. Like, you coming up with the study, I don't necessarily know, and you know, this is also just a claim that he's making. I haven't seen any of the information that he's touting here, so you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. Eggs goes, yeah, that's really weird. I don't think that should be a thing at all. Like, he's talking about being forced to go to a faith-based program from the state. So,
You know, so we're pretty proud of that.
So what's it like day to day for one of your students?
Yeah. We follow a very regimented curriculum. In the first 4 months, it's much more boot camp
remember that part about boot camp orientated? He's talking about kind of strict and by the book. We're gonna get into some of the things that he's like talking about here. We're gonna break down a lot of what he's saying, but it's a bit more rough than he's about to make it. But he's right. He's just downplaying it to a large degree.
of style, I guess you could say. Certainly not with anyone yelling at you the way a drill instructor would be. But it's
That ain't so correct.
very regimented. Basically, you're a little...
Now, another thing here, you have this this thing below. It says, independent studies have found that 78% of Teen Challenge grads successfully beat their addiction. The government of... I wish I remembered this. But anyway, so essentially a government program looking into addiction found that it's really hard to quantify beating an addiction because, you know, is beating your addiction just having beaten it for what? For the first year? Well, we asked them after 6 months, hey, are you addicted to drugs? And they told us no. Well, why would anyone say, yep, I'm back to drugs? How far after did they graduate did you say, hey, you're good? We asked them the next day and they were still clean. Well, you know, it doesn't mean anything. They have a lifetime of staying clean rate of 78%. Is that it? You know, it's a very vague thing is more so what we're talking about. You know, some of these interviews that people ask is just like they'll call up a couple people. Oh yeah, out of 10 people, you know, we asked you know, everyone, and 8 of them, 7 of them rather, said they were clean. The 8th was like, I'm pretty much clean, and they're like, I'm gonna write you down as an 8% instead of a 10%. Anyway.
Behind a big duck everywhere you go. What we're really trying to generate in that individual is to understand and to fall in love with self-discipline. The fact is, if a man is not self-disciplined or self-governed, or a woman, then society will do it. I would rather be a person that learns how to govern my own behaviors and not let that be the responsibility of another. I'll certainly be more graceful to myself, to say the least.
That is, he's right, because I mean, he's essentially saying like, hey, I'd rather take care of myself than let the state, because otherwise I'll be nicer, meaning like, you know, jail time and such, and dealing with the law.
And so we're trying to teach them in those 4 months a really good understanding of being regimented, being a person of order. They make their beds all the way through the program. Matter of fact, I still make my bed.
You're talking about structure.
Structure, organization. Everything has a place. It's not neurotic. It's
Yes, it is.
just keeping. When the outside of your life has order, the inside of your life will tend to have order, and vice versa.
I made my bed. Why the fuck am I still so crazy?
Correctly, self-discipline is going to lead to a renewal of self-esteem.
You know, that's like OCD. Like, everything has to be very particular. And like you said, if you're neurotic, don't worry. Eventually, like, if your whole world on the outside is extremely clean and detailed and organized, internally you'll be healed and fine. I don't know about that.
Among several things, yes. How about just the idea, if I'm a person of self-discipline...
Hey, what up, Logan? How you been, buddy?
And I've
going on?
really made me my favorite hobby. And I'm going to be less susceptible then to the wiles and the temptations of the old people, places, and things. The old behaviors of some of the people that maybe are even in my family. I'm going to be a person with more resilience. I'm going to be walking on a value system that's a little bigger than how I feel about things. And that's a remarkable place to be. Because, for most of us, when we really boil down our value system, we find that to some end that there is an emotional loophole. That depending on what mood I'm in, or what may be advantageous or correctional to me, may slightly alter my value system. We don't operate that way. We believe that there's a value system that's bigger than us, and that the balance of our emotions and our behaviors and our moods can be found within the context of that relational, keyword, relational value system.
So right there, what he's basically saying is the value system that he's talking about is a spiritual value system, one greater than yourself, one greater, it's of a higher kind of quality and such. What he's talking about with this program is it's faith-based. You need to have the faith, because if you don't, this won't work. You know what I'm saying? You need to to have that value system. You need to have faith in that religion, if you will. So you're seeing right here that even the directors of these programs are talking about it, and they're like, yeah, I need to be I need to get all of these students thinking and believing in our religion and such. With all this being said, you can kind of see this program doesn't work if you don't believe in the faith. You know what I'm saying? Again, everyone, as what we have seen so far, it's all based upon believing in this religion. So Teen Challenge hires internally. If they're graduates come out of Teen Challenge, they will successfully they graduate and they're clean and such. They will be asked if they wanted to do an apprenticeship and essentially become part of Teen Challenge. Some of these people have had rough backgrounds. They've had rough histories. Obviously with people who experience issues within their own lives, whether it be abuse or even sexual abuse and things like that, they're going to have a hard time and possibly will turn to drugs and things like that. So now why that's an issue is just because you graduated from a program and you've had life experience within some sort of rehab center and drug culture and such, does not mean that you are going to be the guy. It doesn't mean that you're going to be a good person to be able to teach. Just because you've learned does not mean that you can teach. Does that make sense? So with that being said, is you have a lot of abuse that comes out of Teen Challenge. You have many accusations that come up, both just physical abuse and also you have sexual abuse allegations that come out of it. This organization allegedly encompasses certain unlicensed religious homes that may operate outside of child protection laws due to religious exemptions in the state of Florida. They've been linked to controversial practice of conversion therapy, which is trying to turn people straight and such. The organization has faced accusations regarding severe abuse and ill treatment as its rehabilitation camps throughout the early 2000s and on. Why I am harping on their staff so much is because that's primarily where a lot of the issues that people have with Teen Challenge come from. As I have said that, these people who are the staff now, who graduate and then come on board as staff, have had rough experiences in their lives. That doesn't mean that they're great people now. Or, some of them maybe are, but doesn't mean that all of them are. Just because they graduated a program doesn't mean they're qualified to be counselors and things like that. Now here is an article, or rather a paper, a study done at the Cambridge University. This is in the Cambridge University Press. Here is the volume number, 179, issue 6, and it was printed in the British Journal of Psychiatry. And this paper is a cycle of child sex abuse, links between being a victim and becoming a perpetrator. So the aims to identify perpetrators of such abuse who have been victims of the P and or incest in order to ascertain whether a subject who had been victims become perpetrators of such abuse. Compare characteristics of those who had and had not been victims, and review psychodynamic ideas through thought to underlie the behavior of perpetrators. So, this is just some of the results of it. Let's talk about where the conclusions of this. The data support the notion of a victim to victimizer cycle in a minority of male perpetrators, but not among the female victims studied. Sexual abuse by a female in childhood may be a risk factor for a cycle of abuse in males. Among 174 males, the risk of being a perpetrator was positively correlated with reported sexual abuse victim experiences. The overall rate of having been a victim was 35% for perpetrators and 11% for non-perpetrators. Of the 96 females, 43% had been victims, but only one was a perpetrator. A high percentage of male subjects abused in childhood by a female relative became perpetrators. Having been a victim was a strong predictor of becoming a perpetrator, as was an index of parental loss in childhood. So you have 35%. 35% is not like insignificant numbers as far as, as this study suggests. This is again on teenchallengeusa.org. Here it is. Overcoming Sexual Abuse. Committed to Freedom, written by Sally Culbreth, was published by Teen Challenge to help students who were victims of sexual abuse, a major topic of concern since a majority of women and men at Teen Challenge suffer from sexual abuse. So you can kind of see that the cycle does, correlate at a Teen Challenge type of facility. You can kind of see where the sexual abuse and where the abuse kind of comes from, where it might stem from, is the fact that, they're hiring these people who have these checkered pasts. We talked about it before, but like some people who are court mandated, to avoid jail time, go to Teen Challenge. These people who are coming here they're entering this program in not the best place in their lives, and you can kind of see why those might be a more risky hire, in the long run of all this. This is one of the big stories out of Teen Challenge. Investigative report reveals some religious reform schools are havens for child abuse. This is from the Times. Let me just make sure that I'm correct about this. Yeah, this is the Times magazine. Time magazine. So, here's the date and everything like that. An investigative report reveals extensive child abuse in youth programs in Florida. They advertise as boarding schools or Christian children's homes in Florida, and we're going to get into more of this later. They don't just have rehabilitation programs, they also have boarding schools and military schools. You can kind of see this picture over here, what we're going to get ourselves into. But a year-long investigation published in the Tampa Bay Times reveals lax oversight on dozens of youth programs, some of which have been shut down for abuse in other states and have continued to operate for decades. We're going to talk about that too. In Florida, such unlicensed religious homes can operate outside of state child protection laws thanks to an exemption that protects religious practices. Some are structured more like military camps, while other boarding school programs emphasize the emotional growth aspect of their mission, claiming to help teens with everything from defiance to depression to drug problems. Hundreds of students register to these schools each year, enrolled by desperate parents eager to pay $20,000 or more in tuition to put their child back on the right path, away from drugs, crime, and even homosexuality. The religious exemption, we can talk about this for a little bit, but it's going to get more interesting later. The religious exemption protects the programs from inspections by the state's Department of Children and Families, which means students can be imprisoned or shackled, and unlike with licensed youth programs, can be denied contact with their parents and prevented from accessing child abuse hotlines. This is because they have that religious exemption. Regulatory authority over these religious programs lies almost entirely in the hands of the Florida Association of Christian Child Caring Agencies, FACA, and these programs flourish in other states as well, since no national regulations exist to oversee such facilities for teens. In the opening story of the Tampa Bay Times 3-part investigation, reporters recount the experience of a former Christian military school attendee named Samson Lehman. And, oh boy, this one is an interesting one. They shaved him bald that first morning in 2008, put him in an orange jumpsuit, and made him exercise past dark. Through the night, and as he slept on the floor, they forced him to awake for more. Again, this is a essentially a reformation type of boarding school, if you will, for anything from drugs to defiance and such. The sun had not yet risen over the Christian military home when Samson and Lehman collapsed for the 6th time. Still, he said they made him run. The screaming, the endless exercise, it was all in the name of God, a necessary step at the Gateway Christian Military Academy on the path to righteousness. So when Samson vomited, they threw him a rag. When his urine turned red, they said that was normal. By day 3, the 15-year-old was on the verge of death, his dehydrated organs shutting down. Now, let's go back to something.
The first 4 months, it's much more boot camp of style, I guess you could say. Certainly not with anyone yelling at you the way a drill instructor would be. But it's very regimented. Basically, you're a little duck behind a big duck everywhere you go.
When the team was finally taken to the emergency room, I'm just going to call him Samson, was immediately airlifted to a higher level facility because his conditions required more complex treatment than a local hospital could provide. Dehydration had caused a potentially lethal buildup of waste in his body. An ibuprofen painkiller that staff had given him only made matters worse. Samson required months of dialysis to help his kidneys recover. Months. That's fucking crazy. He had behavior problems other than arguing frequently with his mother. She learned about the program from a boyfriend, blah, blah, blah. So here is their response. In an interview with the Tampa Bay Times, the director of Gateway Christian Military Academy blamed Lehman's hospitalization on pre-existing mineral deficiencies. He also told the paper that the program has since hired a registered nurse to handle health issues, eliminated the intense, lengthy exercises that Samson describes, and requires applicants to pass a physical before entry. Florida's Child Welfare Agency described what happened as verified medical neglect, since Gateway is regulated only by the FACA, which is a voluntary association manned by 2 full-time and 2 part-time employees, and because the state did not choose to file charges, it remains open. And here, now I know what you're saying. You're like, this doesn't sound like Teen Challenge. Gateway Christian Military Academy is also part of a national organization called Teen Challenge, which has a history of abusive practices carried out in the name of religion. For decades, Teen Challenge has run afoul of states with stricter oversight of youth facilities for some of its practices. In the mid-90s, I'll give you a little bit of the zinger because this gets good. In the mid-90s, Teen Challenge tangled with state regulation in Texas when officials demanded that all programs that involved locking up youth met certain training, safety, and education standards for counselors. Citing religious freedom, Teen Challenge resisted. This is another one. Religious exemption at some Florida children's homes shields prying eyes. This is the same story, but there's more about it in this. This is actually the Tampa Bay Times that the Times magazine was talking about. The Tampa Bay Times spent a year investigating more than 30 religious homes that have housed children in recent years across Florida. Some operate with a religious exemption, legally regulated by a private Christian organization instead of the state. Others lost their exemption and operate with no legal accreditation at all, but they still operate. Although most drew few complaints, nearly a dozen have been hounded by allegations of abuse. A review of thousands of pages of investigative files and interviews with dozens of former residents found state authorities have responded to at least 165 allegations of abuse and neglect in the past decade. But homes have remained open even after the state found evidence of sex abuse and physical injury. The religious exemption has for decades allowed homes to avoid state restrictions on corporal punishment. Homes have pinned children to the ground for hours, confined them in seclusion for days, made them stand until they wet themselves, and exercised them until they vomited. Children have been bruised, bloodied, and choked to unconsciousness in the name of Christian discipline. A few barely escaped with their lives. In addition, in 2 settled lawsuits, a mother said her son was forced to hike on broken feet. A father said his son was handcuffed, bound at the feet, locked away for 3 days, and struck by other boys at the instruction of the home. Here's some more interesting things. Adults have ordered children to participate in the punishment, requiring them to act as jailers, to bully troublemakers, or to chase, tackle, and sit on their peers. That's like Rikishi from WWE. These are all accusations until found, until confirmed by a court hearing, or until taken to court. So these are all allegations, unfortunately. This is a really, really interesting community. This is a subreddit called r/Teen Challenge Exposed, and there's just like stories upon stories and stories. Again, these are all unconfirmed. These are not corroborated. But I just want to kind of give you some insight as to what the fuck is going on, like what people are saying about this. Take it all with a grain of salt. My experience with Teen Challenge. I'd gone into Teen Challenge in 2017 when I was 17 years old. I was the youngest person in the whole in my whole program. I was there for a deferred sentence instead of jail time. I ended up being there for 19 months instead of 12 because things that I did to push my program back. So essentially, it's like any sort of like sentence. It could be extended at the discretion of a not state regulated organization. Do you know what I mean? Like, they could push it back. I mean, and who's gonna say that was incorrect of them to push or extend your sentence, I should say. My experience with them was a love-hate relationship. They did give me the necessary tools to get off my 7-year drug addiction to crystal meth and anything I could stick in a needle, but they had certain ways of doing things that were odd, to say the least. For starters, we worked 40 to 45 hour work weeks in a store designed to raise money for Teen Challenge. Now, that's also part of this. They work by taking people in and teaching them Bible, teaching them the Bible and pushing faith on them, and then as well, they also make them work. There's it's called work therapy. They're, for the most part, Pentecostal type of religious organization. Some of the tuition is about like $1,400 initially, and with $400 per month for housing every month. And so that totals up to $6,200 for a year. After 6 months, you begin a work therapy program. You make around $350 a week after tax. The program takes $200 of that, so you're really not going home with a lot of money. Between payment for the program and weekly wage, Teen Challenge makes $13,000 per person upon completion for the program. Now, this is just some of the places. The tuition can go much higher based upon if it's a boarding school, a military school, and such. It all depends. They have a very high turnover rate with that. Their food is primarily donated through, religious programs and whatnot. They also have, they ask for donations from people that you can donate directly to them. So they do get a lot of handouts in that type of way. People have stated that if you get hurt and work, they'll remove you from the program because you can't do shit for them. They've allegedly had people out in the streets begging for money. There's a lot of different stories on r/Teen Challenge Exposed where people talk about that. They talk about having to ask for money from people and just kind of getting told off by people. Some of the research that I looked into suggested that it's typically women that they try to get out there because they're they're more approachable. So here we go. Again, we talked about this. We worked 40 to 45 hour work weeks in a store designed to raise money for Teen Challenge. We were immersed in the Word of God for 4 hours a day. On top of that, lots of daily chores. We couldn't talk about our past life. We had 2 15-minute phone calls every week. Their discipline was definitely different than anything I've experienced. If they thought you had an issue with swearing or talking about stuff you weren't supposed to, they put you on a word fast, which means you can't talk at all for a certain amount of time. If they catch you talking, you get time added on. I had seen someone not allowed to talk for 15 days, which is fucking insane. They would withhold seconds on meals, which after working 8 hours a day seems a little fucking rough, but it all made sense to me. I was treated well, and because I gave myself to them, they were good to me. I genuinely thought they gave a shit about me. My biggest issue with them started near the end of my program. I decided I wanted to stay on and work for them as junior staff. They paid me $100 a week, which coincides with what we were just talking about, and paid my room and board. But when I decided that I wanted to do things my own way, they said I needed to really think about it, and they said I wouldn't be able to do it on my own, that I would fail without their help. Which is not right, because the reason it was designed was to have God transform people and let them back out into the community. Once I had said I wanted to leave, they kicked me out with no money, no place to go, no food, nothing. If it wasn't for my girlfriend and her family, I would have been stranded and more than likely would have relapsed due to stress of living and trying to make ends meet. They didn't call, they didn't message me, they didn't ask if I was okay or eating, or if I had a place to live. They were only there for me if I had something to offer them. So... And you have some other things. He talks about his pastor was caught stealing from the ministry several times. They had leaders in leadership that openly relapsed, putting students at risk. They are still allowed to be in leadership. That's when I realized that they really give you a fear that you can't do it without them. Here is another story. This is from the dailycoast.com. This is in Dallas. An 18-year-old man and his parents sued the Assemblies of God and the church ranch for troubled youths Tuesday, claiming the youth was molested by a counselor at the center 2 years ago. The alleged victim was 16 when he went to Dallas Teen Challenge Boys Ranch in Winsboro in January 1996. According to his lawsuit, a counselor and convicted drug trafficker sexually molested him and 2 other boys, one of whom was 16 or younger. The counselor sexually... The lawsuit further alleges to the church that the church ranch executive director Paul Ecker and the ranch's board knowingly employed men with criminal histories as counselors, despite being informed by state regulators that the practice was illegal. Now, you might be saying, how are they allowed to get away with this? Like, what the fuck? This is fucking insane, right? And we're gonna talk about that. How they primarily they were the direct focus of a lot of push for legislation to be favoring of faith-based programs like this. Here is a really, really great extensive description of someone's experience. This girl, Olivia. From 2016 to 2017, I was in an all-girls rehabilitation center for 14 months. And she's pretty fair about this. Like I said, for a Tumblr article, this is quite, eye-opening and pretty right down the middle. My goal here is to share my own story and what I experienced living there for so long. I'd like to say that not everyone's experience was negative or the same by any means. People were treated differently there based upon the staff's feelings towards them at any given time, and every Teen Challenge Center differs slightly in rules and regulation. Here, I am specifically referring to my own experience in Teen Challenge Kansas City. The facility housed an average of about 25 girls, more or less, at any given time. It's now known as the Kansas City Girls Academy. So upon coming there, you're separated from your parents almost immediately. I was lucky enough to have been driven there by my parents. However, some girls are transported. This is when your parents and staff arrange for you to be taken in the middle of the night, only told that you are going to your new school. Staff transport you in a van to the center. The ride being sometimes 10 plus hours long, as there are girls taken from all over the USA, or the US. A majority of the girls driven by their parents have no idea what they're getting themselves into or where they're actually going, myself included. Let me show you why that might be a horrible idea. Let me just go up it so you guys can read everything that I read, if you want to look back on this. So there's all that. This is from The Dick Show. This is a caller calling in about being taken in the middle of the night and essentially kidnapped for all that he knew, and why that is a dangerous thing to do. This is someone from Pennsylvania who had this very similar story as to what she talked about with the being transported kind of stuff.
And I just didn't want to go to church, because what teenage boy wants to go to church at 6 a.m. on a Sunday?
Oh my God.
So she felt that Satan had me, and she wanted to send me to one of those Christian youth camps.
Oh God. Okay.
So what happened is I was asleep, and my dog at the time, a little tiny 5-pound American Eskimo, a little white puff, like the little yappy kind. She started barking in the middle of the night, and I woke up because of it, and I heard footsteps. And at the time, I'm just thinking, okay, maybe it's my mom getting a snack. But then I hear 2 male voices, and I start freaking out because someone's inside of our house that I don't know who it is.
Yeah. Where did you live at the time?
Voices.
Where'd you live? What state?
Pennsylvania.
Okay. So
I
2
still
guys.
in Pennsylvania, which is a great state because we have this thing called the Castle Doctrine, which means that's why I'm probably not in jail right now with a record. It's pitch black. It's like 1 or 2 in the morning.
Okay.
So I don't have a phone. I don't have anything.
What year is this?
What I do have is my grandfather's 45. She took me shooting all the time, and for my 16th birthday, which was 4 months earlier, he let me keep his 45 to shoot in and everything.
Okay.
I live in bumblefuck nowhere, Pennsylvania. I lived in a single parent household, so we didn't have anything worth stealing. So I'm just thinking, I'm not gonna fuck with those two guys because Lord knows what's gonna go on.
So you don't know who they are or anything. You're not expecting these people to come.
I'm in my room, let them do their thing, and when they leave, I'll call the cops because I don't want to get stabbed or anything.
Right.
Yeah. So you're thinking they're just there to like rob your shit. They're gonna look around, see that there's nothing there to take, and then leave.
Yes.
Okay.
And the first thing that I hear footsteps coming right to my bedroom door. So I get the gun, I load it, I aim it at the door, and as soon as it opens up, bang, 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 click, click, click.
You just empty it.
I shot 6 times. The first guy was dead. I got him in the shoulder, the chest, and the head. The second guy, I got him in the arm, the shoulder, and the stomach.
Through the door, or was the door open?
They opened the door. That's when I started shooting. My mom came downstairs, called the paramedics and the cops. The cops took me away. I was in the jail cell overnight. Basically, the way those camps
kept
work
one for
is
mom.
they basically sign away custody to those camps. I get charged with manslaughter and illegal possession of a firearm because I was 16 at the time.
Okay.
My grandmother was pissed. My mother was pissed. My grandfather, again, God bless his soul, paid my bail, let me stay at his place while all this is going on, and I was with him until I turned 18.
Nice.
And so I go to court, and the judge looks at it, and he looks over it, and the judge just turns his head, and he looks at me, he looks at me and asks, "Son, did you know someone's coming to take you?" "No, Honor, I did not know." He looks at me and just says, "No, I'm dismissing this case."
Yeah.
Because the kid didn't know. You didn't know that someone was there to take you. Exactly. So I got off scot-free, and I would show you.
It's not a very good idea to try to just take people like that, in the middle of the night. You never know what might happen out of it. It's rough. One guy died, and from that story, and the other guy he lived, but it's pretty fucking crazy. So her talking about this like being taken in the middle of the night thing, that can go wrong quite easily. Almost as soon as you arrive, you're stripped down in front of staff members to show that you're not hiding any drugs or paraphernalia. Students actually, searched through every item I brought, labeling my name on things and putting aside things I'm not allowed to have. You're given a binder including a set of rules, 19 pages long, and several other pages including Bible verses and other things. The first 2 weeks, you do not focus on school, and you are not allowed to communicate with anyone outside of Teen Challenge, family included. You're not allowed to talk to them. You can only speak to staff sometimes, and 2 other students called your big sisters.
But it's very regimented. Basically, you're a little duck behind a big duck everywhere you go.
The claims that she's making are at least founded by, or confirmed to some degree, by people working there at Teen Challenge. You are required to fully handwrite the rules and other paperwork in your binder or notebook. Along with this, you are required to memorize Bible verses among a binder of other paperwork in this 2-week time frame. If you do not comply, you do not progress in the program. You can't listen to anything that is music that isn't Christian and such. During your time there, you only are allowed to outside the center about every 2 months. These are referred to as passes. The first pass is on campus and is only several hours long. The time you have outside one of the centers increases the longer you are there. However, you are still required to comply with the Teen Challenge rules, even with family. The longest pass you're allowed at the very end is 10 days. Until then, you are not allowed to use phones or makeup, even outside of the facility and with your family present. If you do not comply with these rules in general, they frequently threaten to take away these passes and at any time with your family. So here we go. Here's the punishments. These are very, very crazy. First, the written disciplines. I've had a few, and they can be given to you for very little logical reason. There is a list of character qualities in your binder, which are words/traits you should strive to be, so on and so forth. Most of the time, you have to write these paragraphs hundreds of times, if not thousands of times, if you are to get one of these disciplines. A girl I knew had to write the 19-page rules 20 times, along with a great amount of other written discipline. I can remember one of the times she was given discipline solely because she did not close her eyes during group prayer when which staff deemed disrespectful. They picked on her among many others for not having faith. Next is full restriction. In this, you have no privileges. You are to wear a set of navy blue clothes at all time and speak to no one, including staff, unless they feel like it. You cannot have perfume, jewelry, scented lotion, or a majority of your normal clothes you brought with you. You sleep on a top bunk. Anything you think of, you do not have. You are given the bare minimum to be alive. You do not have free time. You are only to be writing disciplines. If you are not given any written discipline, you are to write down chapters of the Bible until you are off full restriction. This can go on for however long they wish. I have heard of girls being on this for a year straight. The minimum I've seen is 1 month. They threaten you with this discipline very, very often. Next is R&R, relationship restriction. Most of the time, this is a consequence of getting too close to the girls you are living with or having a toxic relationship. Basically, she talks about they if you're friends with somebody, they fucking get you a heck away from them, and the opposite is true too. If you don't get along with somebody, there's something called I&I, which they'll just force you guys to be together. I knew of 2 girls that hated each other, and they were told they were babies, forced to do absolutely everything with the other person. They were given pacifiers to wear around their neck, wore pigtails and matching t-shirts, humiliating them as a result. I believe they were stuck on this discipline for several months. And then it gets like, this is just crazy shit where it's like really like affecting your nutrition. This one, the Danielle diet, they may give you this for many reasons, such as if you steal food, if you're ungrateful, or sometimes if they just feel like you deserve it. You were given 1 cup of meat, 1 cup of fruit, 1 cup of veggies per meal, literally measured out. For breakfast, you eat a slice of bread and 1 cup of milk. There have been girls that have been taken off this diet because they were so malnourished from being on it for months at a time. If you ever talk about wanting to leave, especially running away, they threaten you with shackles or the boot or any number of punishments. I've seen girls shackled behind their backs, even in their beds at night. So as you can see, it's fucking crazy. You know, like some of the disciplines that they push on these girls. It's fucking mad. This is, in my opinion, one of the worst. This kind of just goes to how deranged, if true, these punishments are. And it just seems like a really horrible kind of like place as far as these allegations go, right? It doesn't really seem yet like, we are experiencing cult behaviors. But this is where it gets kind of fucking crazy. This is someone who was in the Dallas Teen Challenge. I'd like to discuss some discipline at the Teen Challenge Ranch would hand down. For lighter infractions, you would either get sentences of copying certain Bible verses 50 or 100 times, which we've heard before. For more serious infractions, there was a rock pile where you would use a hammer to bust big rocks down into smaller ones. For even more serious infractions, we had what was called stump duty. You would take a shovel and a pickaxe and go to a freshly cut down tree and dig the stump out. Which this is just all comical. This is like what you'd see in like a cartoon in a jail sentence. For last chance infractions, you had grave duty. They would lead you out to a specified section of land and lay a door frame. The door was your measurement for your grave. I believe it was 3 feet by 3 feet by 5 feet deep. You would dig this grave, and once you were finished, the entire house would come out and watch you lie in it. As you read aloud Romans 8 to symbolize dead to self, alive in Christ. You would then fill the grave in, and that was that. I spent time on discipline from the end of September to Christmas break. Most of this was on stump duty, but I also had to dig a grave. While I was on discipline, I laid down sick with a legit 101 fever. It was raining outside, blah blah. And when they talked about it, they said dead man doesn't get sick. Dead men, whatever, doesn't get sick. So, pretty fucking crazy stuff. This is digging your own grave, and then you have to lie in it. Is a little bizarre. I really wanted to showcase just how far this abuse goes. I know that at this point it seems a little redundant, but where these are accusations, at the very least, I kind of want to show how some of these accusations do have similar parallels and also echo some things that we've heard from the staff at the work for Teen Challenge. Because I think that with these type of accusations, it's tough to know what's true and what's not, And the problem is, there have been, at least at one point, 165 accusations at some of these places, and So they've had some lawsuits and such. They've had some big, issues with some of their locations. So it's really hard to figure out what's the truth, what may not be. You can't be certain that this is all truthful. And, to Teen Challenge credit, this is kind of them talking about Teen Challenge a bit more and how it is operated. And I think that this is a fair thing to give them. So here is an article in the HuffPost. This is talking about Minnesota Teen Challenge. Minnesota Teen Challenge is a leading and respected treatment center in Minnesota, part of a large network of Teen Challenge centers across the United States. Each program is independently controlled and autonomous in operation and methodology. As such, it is entirely improper to attribute alleged incidents and practices at one center as being common at all. Just because it's happening at one does not mean it's going to be happening at all. But the problem with this is you can't, because Teen Challenge doesn't openly admit to these allegations, and they don't let let the state kind of look into this and administer checks and balances with your program. It's hard to tell what program is a good program, what's not. I'm sure there are some Teen Challenge locations that are good and that are, by the book and that don't do any of this fucked up shit. But when you don't do proper audits, from a non biased kind of organization, like the state, it's really hard to agree with you and to say that, oh yeah, you know what, these places are all good. The best way to look at this is, well, if there's all these accusations and some have even been confirmed, some of which haven't, but some have. With that being said, it's like, well, then if you guys aren't willing to tell me the truth and be completely transparent with your operations and what's going on, and I can't really take you on your word. I don't think that Teen Challenge, I really wouldn't recommend Teen Challenge to anyone because of this. They have these infractions and they won't admit it, and they won't say, yeah, this is all fucked up, but we have since reformed. This location is actually above board. We're doing XYZ for it. All they're doing is they're really kind of hiding these accusations. They're not addressing them. They're kind of trying to keep them as quiet as possible. And I think because of that, if you're trying to gain the public's trust in you, being shady and not being transparent like this really does you a disservice, in my opinion. So that's why, yes, maybe only a few Teen Challenge places have been have had serious issues. Maybe some have never had any issues, but because we can't figure out the good from the bad, I really wouldn't suggest Teen Challenge to anybody. This is it. Nick was transferred to Pensacola Teen Challenge in March 2011. Nick relapsed and they dismissed him from the program. They put him on the street with no money, no food, no phone, just his bags. Nick managed to get a phone and call me and let me know he was okay. He spent the night on the beach because the hotels were full because of the holiday. This is a post from someone who spoke to the mother of this kid, Nick. For full clarity, he spent the night on the beach because the hotels were full because of the holiday. He made it to the bus station and we got him home on Memorial Day. They put him in jail where he stayed for about 3 weeks. I visited him and continued to send emails to his attorney to see if he could do a program besides Teen Challenge. I explained that it was against Nick's constitutional rights, but the ADA would not budge. She said either a year in jail or Teen Challenge. Nick chose Teen Challenge. Pensacola Teen Challenge, I begged Pensacola Teen Challenge to send him to another Teen Challenge so my son wouldn't have to go to jail. They sent him to Jacksonville, Florida. His luggage was stolen and such in Pensacola. It's not really that important. I got a call. This is the mother. I got a call from Jacksonville Teen Challenge from a man named Paul. He said Nick was under the influence. He said someone was on their way to the job site to get Nick and bring him back there to pack, and they were going to take him to the hospital. I asked Paul to have Nick call me. Paul called back at 8:10 and said that Nick was on his way to the hospital and that he refused to call me. Nick always called me no matter what. Nick never did call, and I was worried sick. I called the police and hospitals multiple times. I called Teen Challenge and spoke with Jonathan, and he did not know where Nick was or who had dropped Nick off. He told me that Nick was resourceful and to call back Monday. On the 20th, about 4 p.m., I told my sister, blah, blah, this doesn't really matter. I reported Nick missing after no one had seen him for 23 hours. I went to bed at midnight and woke up at 4 a.m. I checked the computer to see if Nick had messaged me on Facebook. I walked outside on the porch and there were 2 police cars with 2 policemen and a chaplain. I just shook my head. I knew why they were there. They told me that Nick was found dead at a woman's house and that he had met in a parking lot. I assumed it was a girl, maybe Nick's age. The woman was 57. After speaking with police and the coroner, I learned that Nick was dismissed from Teen Challenge Jacksonville, and they said they took him to the hospital. There is no proof that he was taken to the hospital. Teen Challenge refuses to give the name of the person who took him to the hospital and dropped him off in the parking lot. All we know for sure is that Nick was put on the street after working a 12-hour shift with his luggage. They did not feed him before they dumped him on the street. He was next seen on a video at CVS at 12:59 a.m. He was carrying a Coke and walked through the store, then out of the back towards McDonald's. From there, Nick was picked up by a 57-year-old woman named Donna Rose. She claims Nick told her he was homeless and was going to sleep in the bushes. She took him to her home. She said he ate 2 sandwiches, but no food was found when the autopsy was performed, and Nick was dehydrated. She told the police that they stayed up drinking until the morning hours. However, Nick had no alcohol in his toxicology report. He did, however, have methadone, which she had a prescription for. He also had and cough syrup. Donna Rose, by her own admission, was there to get medicine for a cold. She tells the police that she came into the living room at 1:30 p.m. on the 20th, and Nick was snoring. She said she came back at 4:20 p.m. and he was cold. My son died because Teen Challenge Jacksonville did not follow procedure and turned Nick over to the proper authorities, like the contract states. He was on probation and was to be turned over to the police. The woman, Donna Rose, also should be held accountable because it was her medication that was found in the system. So, there is a lot to all this. It really goes above and beyond. I mean, at some point, you have to look at this and you go, well, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Maybe not all this is correct, and maybe not all this is false. I vetted a lot of other things that were much worse, like girls who saw girls hanging and killed themselves and knew they were going to kill themselves and decided to not do anything. They didn't give a shit. People, like, horrible stories. So I don't want to go over that kind of stuff because I think that's a little too... Those allegations are a little too big to just have unconfirmed, so I didn't want to add those. But like I said, with all these accusations, at some point you got to go. The truth is somewhere in the middle, I would say. All right, why is this allowed to happen? How are they allowed to get away with this shit? If at a normal rehabilitation program or normal boarding school, this shit would never fly. And it does have to do with the religious freedoms that certain legislation really pushed. And it gets fucking crazy because we have legislation from a very kind of big but crazy source, and that is our good old boy, former president George W. Bush. I'm not kidding you. Somehow this whole thing relates to him in a rather interesting way. So let's get into this.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
The idea is to promote successful programs, to focus on whether or not these programs are successful, and if they are, encourage them. And one of the really successful programs in America is a program called Teen Challenge. I don't know if you're aware of Teen Challenge. So Pastor Arthur Stafford's with us. Arthur works at Teen Challenge New Haven. Notice I didn't say Mr., I said Pastor. Teen Challenge is a faith-based program. And his program is aimed, like many of the Teen Challenge programs, at helping young folks overcome addiction to drugs, which oftentimes leads to crime and other problems. And so today, Matt Enriquez is with us. So Matt comes in to meet the president, I said, how you doing, Matt? He didn't speak. He looked a little nervous. Matt was addicted to drugs. He had spent time because of robbery. He was lost. and then he was found by people at Teen Challenge. He is now going to college. Where are you, Matt? There he is.
I mean, as you can see, this is clearly
Where's Arthur? Master.
quite nice endorsement about Teen Challenge. You know what I
Master,
mean?
stand up. Yeah, there you go.
This is something
Get
that
the pastor,
George W.
man.
Bush
There he
believed
is.
quite strongly in, and in fact, specifically Teen Challenge as the poster for faith-based programs like this. So, in 1995, auditors from the Texas Commission for Alcohol and Drug Abuse, TCATA, demanded that Teen Challenge obtain state licensing and employ state licensed counselors. As a result, then Governor George W. Bush, this is before the video that we just watched, Governor George W. Bush publicly defended Teen Challenge and pursued alternative licensing procedures for faith-based organizations. And here's a quote. Teen Challenge should view itself as a pioneer in how Texas approaches faith-based programs. I'll call together people and ask them to make recommendations. Licensing standards have to be different from what they are today, then Governor Bush said. And this actually worked in their favor. Let me pull up the House bill. Here we go. This is from the from TexasObserver.org. Let's get on into it. So it says the deregulation of drug treatment facilities has followed a slightly different path. Used to be drug treatment in the state was a specialized service requiring a license from the Texas Department of Health. Licensees had to have degreed counselors and medical facilities to deal with addiction via pharmaceuticals in order to use the drug treatment label. Another program favored by former Governor Bush, Teen Challenge, was lucky enough to have the rules changed to suit its preferences. In 1995, the Texas Commission that we talked about threatened to shut them down, shut the program down in Texas because it hired counselors without social work backgrounds or state licenses, among other transgressions. Governor Bush kept the shutdown from happening, though, and convened a task force to find a way to accommodate such programs. I already read that. And the legislative response was House Bill 2481, which passed in 1997. The law exempts from state licensing and regulations those faith-based alcohol and drug treatment programs which rely exclusively on faith to change lives. Now, faith-based groups wanting to be called drug treatment centers rather than mere drug education centers only have to fill out paperwork certifying nonprofit status and religious intent, refrain from offering medical services, and put a paragraph to this effect on all their pamphlets. Such services are available only to adults. So far, there are 102 such religious drug treatment centers in the state. So as you can see, they were given, very helpful legislation by, former president, then Governor George W. Bush. And it doesn't even just stop there. As we saw, even into his presidency, he really backed Teen Challenge. So here is, again, we go back to teenchallengeusa.org. I really tried to use a lot of their sites because, this is obviously something they would stand by. And here it is, in 2003. Presidential appointed. President George W. Bush appointed Dennis Griffith, Executive Director of Southern California, the Director of the Southern California Teen Challenge, to serve on the White House Advisory Commission on Drug-Free Communities. So, it didn't just stop in 95 or 97 and such. There is a long standing relationship throughout the years between the Bush administration and Teen Challenge. As you can see, some of the Bush administration is from Teen Challenge. Here's a quick little blurb from President Bush about Teen Challenge. This is from the New York Times. Mr. Bush said charities should make demands on the receipts of aid. At Teen Challenge, this is a quote, a national drug treatment program, one official says, we have a rule. If you don't work, you don't eat, the Texas governor said. So this is Bush as the governor of Texas, the then governor, quoting an official. And if I was to paraphrase it in a different way, he's essentially saying, at Teen Challenge, they have a rule. If you don't work, you don't eat. And then he he continues. This is again back to a quote. "This is demanding love," he said. A severe mercy. These institutions at their best treat people as moral individuals with responsibilities and duties, not as wards or clients or dependents or numbers. Because of this legislation, they operate under religious exemption from a lot of things and such in many different states. Florida is another one of them. And here is some questionable stuff. This is specific about one individual who worked at one location at a teen challenge. I also wanted to mention, I forgot to talk about this before, that it's funny that the Teen Challenge we talked about earlier, they talk about, we're all individual, we work completely autonomously from one another and such, but yet, so they try to separate teen challenges. Each teen challenge is different and unique, but yet when they talk about their statistics, it's funny because they here we go. Yeah, they'll lump them together, and I brought this up earlier, but I wanted to showcase this. Northwestern University study of the three largest teen challenges found 86% drug-free after 3 years. Why are you lumping them together? Isn't their curriculum, their schedule, their rules and regulations, aren't they completely different from one another? So why would you, talk about them as if they can be grouped together? You know what I mean? So they're kind of just pushing this narrative in a way that best suits them, which you really can't blame them. It's not that surprising, but I just kind of want to showcase that, when it's opportunistic for them to be like, well, they're all individual. Maybe some places are bad, maybe some places are good. Accusations at one don't mean across the board, but yet success at success at three is worth lumping together as if they have some sort of commonality between them. I mean, other than the fact that they're faith-based programs. So, I'm not a big fan of that. This is a person who has worked at one of the teen challenges, and possibly still does, but I can't corroborate that. A lot of this information has been redacted because I don't really feel like doxing somebody, even though this is the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, their sexual offender, lists. You can search these people. This is someone who works at least has worked at Teen Challenge. So let's go into this. This is a person who has been convicted. You can see over here, adjudication. It's been a guilty, been convicted. In 1997 was the adjudication date. The crime description is a sex offense. In another state, second degree sexual assault. This is that person's their LinkedIn page. This is she was a finance and choir director, so she was a director at Teen Challenge working at a Teen Challenge, with youth in a youth program, with a sexual offense, guilty conviction. A little odd. This is the Teen Challenge in New England. This is the Facebook post of the Teen Challenge Rhode Island location. As I don't know if you guys saw before, but this location that this person has at least worked in the past. Now, the way that LinkedIn works, just because this is what is listed does not mean that this is her current place of work. This is their Facebook post from March of this year, March 24th, 2020. This is to both her husband, Peter, and herself, Shandi. This is a post from the Teen Challenge Rhode Island. Thank you, Shandi. Your continued support for Teen Challenge Rhode Island through all you do is very much appreciated. We are looking forward to your group study classes through social media tomorrow. It's going to be amazing. Such a blessing. Social distancing at its finest. We do miss you, though. So she's still working there. That's all that really can be said. She had a conviction in 1997 of a sexual, she's a sexual offender. That conviction, like I said, happened in 97, and she, at the very least, is still working to some degree as a she's doing some sort of group study class. She's operating that with for this youth program. So I believe this is her, but don't quote me on it, from just based upon facial features and such. But so yeah, they got a little bit of some questionable people who work there altogether, and I think that all of this information together really paints a picture of Teen Challenge and how it operates, and and like I said, I don't think that each one of these allegations means that every single Teen Challenge is a problem, but I do think though that because Teen Challenge global Teen Challenge as a whole isn't transparent with this information, I don't think that I would suggest any parents or any state should send children or people suffering from some sort of issue to these places. I really don't believe that a faith-based program should be something that the state mandates you to go to. There have been some controversies with this as well. The organization has been involved in at least 2 lawsuits alleging abuse and neglect by parents of minors involved with the organization. And here it is. In 2001, John Castellani, the former president of Teen Challenge USA, during a House Government Reform Subcommittee examining the efficacy of religious social service providers, said that Teen Challenge does not hire non-Christians as employees. And when asked if the group takes non-Christians as clients, he said yes. So this is clearly admitting to, there is some sort of push for religious ideology to their students, and if those students are being mandated to go there through their state's judicial system, I don't think that's appropriate for the ideas of separation of church and state. I want to pull up this test. This is just a test that was created by someone who had experienced being in a cult, and this is almost a way. This isn't a definitive way to test if what your program is a cult or not. This is simply just something to push critical thinking. This is the cult test at cult-escape.com. So, is your leader the ultimate authority of your group? They don't really, from what I see, my research, they don't have a direct leader, so nope. Most cult leaders give themselves impressive made-up names or titles which elevate their status to their followers. They may call themselves the man of God, pastor, prophet, messiah, messenger, enlightened teacher, guru, apostle, etc. Does your leader have impressive made-up names or titles? They do have pastors, but I really do believe them to be official, legit, religious pastors, so I will say no to this. Cult leaders convince members to forfeit their critical thinking ability in return for a sense of belonging, authority, and purpose. To members, it doesn't matter what the evidence or logic may suggest, the leader is always right, and their misdeeds are always justified. Criticism of the leader is forbidden. Is your leader always right, and therefore you are not allowed to criticize him or her, even if the criticism is true? I do believe this to be the case. I think that if not speaking about one direct leader, but rather the staff, if you will, if you were to go against them, they will give you punishments, even, as we saw before from the accusations and the experiences of people, whether it be logical or not. So I would say yes, it's their way or the highway, essentially, even if you don't agree with it. Cults generally only allow their members to study their organization through approved sources. They view critical thinking as an infectious disease, and every effort is made to suppress it. Doubting members are encouraged to isolate themselves from outside influences and focus solely on the doctrine of the cult. People who contradict the group are viewed as persecutors and are often given labels like anti, apostate, or rival. Members are discouraged from consuming any material that is critical of the group. This is absolutely correct. They have regulations about you can't speak to anyone outside of the group. You only have 2 15-minute conversations. You only have a certain amount of passes to go out and speak, or to go outside of the schools or the programs themselves. This is absolutely correct with Teen Challenge. Yes. Because religious cults consider themselves the ultimate authority on truth, the members can't imagine anybody leaving the group with their integrity intact. Thus, they have to perpetuate a false narrative that former members were deceived, backslidden, demonic, bitter, evil, or fallen away, etc. As far as your group is concerned, would they say that there is no legitimate reason to leave them? Absolutely. If you leave or you don't want to be a part of this, it's there has been a really, really good video by, let me pull it up. It's actually, if you just type in Teen Challenge on YouTube, it should be one of the first things that come up. And let's see right here. They really want to make it seem like if you leave, you're completely wasting your life. And to him, he was at Teen Challenge. This is S-Man213, who I reached out to. This is actually a great video to watch to get a first-hand experience of Teen Challenge. It's one of the first pieces of information that I got about it that I really wanted to explore this rabbit hole further. And he says in this video that when he was thinking about leaving, they're like, oh, you're just gonna end up like your father who died of of drug-related issues and such and things like that. So yes, that is absolutely correct. As far as your group is concerned, would they say there is no legitimate reason to leave them? Yes. And we've seen it before too. They'll just kick you right the fuck out. Like, oh, this is the way that you're not gonna be able to do it yourself. You need to stay with us. Does your group insist that the end of the world is near? Cults position themselves as a sole refuge from an evil outside world that is intent on their destruction. Cults thrive on conspiracy theories, catastrophic thinking, and persecution complexes. In an effort to draw in more paying members, cults are often very aggressive in their recruitment efforts, which are usually justified as saving people from the evil world. Those who reject the cult's message are condemned, unelected, damned, evil, goats, the great, unwashed, etc. Is your group suspicious about the outside world? They are suspicious of it. They are not focused on doomsday prophecies and such. They are suspicious of the outside world as far as influences trying to push you. They talked about this whole thing from the director Joel, Pastor Joel. He was essentially just saying, you might have people in your life, in your family even, that really are negative influence, but in this program we try to make sure that you don't have to deal with that shit. And there has even been a video from a former Jehovah's Witness who, they won't even let you talk to other people. This guy walked by Teen Challenge, and they, here he is, Rehab or Cult. This is by Vinny Vincent, and he talks about how they didn't even want to talk to him. And that's exactly the thing. They don't want you to hear anything else. They don't want you to get any other ideas. They want it to be completely contained. So I do believe that they're suspicious of the outside world, which is why they don't let you speak to the outside world. Cults all believe they are right. They are the right group with the right doctrines, the right leader, the right interpretation of the holy book, and their leader is right in dictating what laws and rules that they are to obey. Does your group believe that they are the right religion, church, group, ones or only ones who have right teaching and doctrine? Absolutely. They pride themselves on a faith-based program and the way that they teach this to be the right way to take care of your issues, your life-threatening issues. That's why they're so orderly and regimented about it. Cults exercise control over their followers. The leader determines the rules, laws, and expects to be obeyed, or else there are consequences. Rules, laws can include what you can't wear, where you can't live, who you can't eat with, who you can't marry, what job you can't do, who you can't keep company with, what education you can't receive, what your stance is to those who have left the group, and more. Are there any of the above such rules and laws in the group? I think this is a clear yes, based upon the information that we've gone over in this video. Emotional separation. Cults are not happy when members leave, primarily because they think that there is never a legitimate reason to leave. Therefore, those who leave are treated negatively. Remaining members, even family members, distance themselves emotionally, often shunning and ostracizing ex-members. They now see them as unclean, evil, deceived, etc. If you were to leave your religious group, would remaining members, even family members, separate themselves from you, whereby there would be an emotional detachment? Absolutely. We talked about this before, where once that in one of the stories, when the guy, I think it was in the Dallas Teen Challenge, wanted to leave, they kicked him out and they didn't call him, they didn't ask how he was doing, they didn't give a shit. So there was an absolute emotional detachment from him. And he said, I thought these people cared about me and gave a shit. And there's physical separation. Cults separate families. This is how it works. A member of the family leaves. The cult now separates the remaining family members with laws and rules. These dictate they can now no longer have normal family life with that member who is left. For example, they're no longer allowed to freely eat or drink with them, to stay or live with them, to go on holiday with them, to celebrate the birth of their children or go on a wedding, to fully join the funeral arrangement, to celebrate birthdays, special occasions with them, to shopping with them, to contact them. I don't know of this. I don't think this is a thing. If you were to leave your religious group, would remaining members separate themselves from you and cease to have normal family life, as in any of the examples below? Now, the way that this question is worded, if you were to leave your religious group, would remaining members separate themselves from you and cease to have normal family life? The answer is clearly a yes, because they do keep you away from speaking to other people, and they do want to keep you within the group. But for the sake of this, I will say no, because it's worded in a little weird way. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt and say that this is a no. From what you've answered, 7 out of the 10 cultic characteristics appear to be in your group, and then so on and so forth. So again, this is not the definite thing, but realistically, this is just to signify how this organization really does operate in a cult-like manner. They take you away from the outside world. They keep you out of it. There's these very odd rules, and they really, some of the punishments that they give you are brainwashing. They brainwash you to be focused on the Bible, to understand the entire Bible, to really gain the faith. Think about it. The punishment is to write down Bible verses, to write down the rules and regulations until it's soaked into your head. That to me is a form of brainwashing, to both your ideology and to your regulations, for conformity. So I really do believe that this is a cult-like organization. It's a very unique one, and it's even more unique the fact that they have religious exemption, and again, a court system can just tell you, yep, you got to go to Teen Challenge, as we've seen in some of these stories. So it's very bizarre, because at the surface it just looks like a rehabilitation center or a boarding school or a military school, but realistically, based upon the way that it's operated, the questionable people that they have running this, the questionable rules and regulations and ethics, and the fact that it can't be observed and audited by a state organization, it really suggests this is like open. They can do whatever the fuck they want, and you really can't do anything about it. Again, we read about it in the New York Times, and I'll let S-Man213 say it right here.
Protects the programs from inspections by the state's Department of Children and Families, which means students can be imprisoned or shackled, and unlike with licensed youth programs, can be denied contact with their parents and prevented from accessing child abuse hotlines.
Again, I highly would recommend his video. It's very, very informative. But I hope that this has kind of been an interesting look at something, like I said, that is can be mandated to people, and also that is going on currently to this day with many different accusations and such. And hope you guys like this. Thanks for being a part of this. Thanks for sticking through and watching this up until this point. If you are interested in more of this, please obviously subscribe to the channel, as well as you can join our Discord. It's in the description below, and if you're watching this on Twitch, it's in the chat right now. That is where you'll hear all about when we're going live again, when we're doing another stream, when another video is going on. You can partake in this directly. You can be part of this with us. as well as be sure to check out the previous Snail schools that we've done. We've done ones on Allen Tutorial. We've done ones on the Snail itself, the 2008 financial crisis, and how Big O, the anime, explains that. We've done two recently, one about Andrew WK's trolling campaign and another about Andrew WK and his whole history and building up of that, like in the lore, the full story of that. So really, really interesting stuff out there. If you guys like it, there's gonna be more of it.